say your name or something into the mic. Mic check. Myself, allow everybody else to introduce themselves. I'll introduce our moderator and explain the role of Mark Holyoke as the moderator. And then we'll just jump into the agenda that we have. Gary, we couldn't start without you. Sorry. No, you're good. It allowed us to get a little comfortable in our seats before we get put on the spot.
He's the busiest one here.
No, but it's true. Gary is all over this state every week. Anyway, in this, we'll also, Mark, as the moderator, you have free liberty to interrupt us anytime, to throw out a joke or to ask a question or whatever you feel is pertinent and appropriate at the time.
Oh, it has to be appropriate. Okay. Right.
Okay. Barry, are we ready for a go? Rita, are we ready for a go? Okay. Well, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out today. This is the first of a new series of online media that we plan to do and participate in as a county. This is kind of the pilot project, and we're going to kick it off with the career pathways. My name is Commissioner Jake Meller, and I chair the State Department of Workforce Services Subcommittee of Career Pathways. This is very important and relevant to our community, as with the Governor's initiative for 25,000 new jobs in rural Utah, we want them to have a streamlined pathway into employment. And that's part of all the same, that kind of works into the same goal. Today's panel discussion, we have some big hitters here at the table, and glad to have them here with us today. I'd like to introduce everybody, if I could. We have Gilberta Hardy with Pinnacle. We have Mayor Piccolo. We have Lance Hatch, who is their brand new superintendent. We'll give him a minute to introduce himself a little better. And we have Chancellor Joe Peterson. We have Gary Strakowdien, both with the college. Gary is a provost and wears many hats. And we have Mark Holyoke as the moderator. And that means that he'll be asking questions that the public would ask. From the employer perspective, we wanted to choose someone from industry. Mark is the CEO of the hospital, and we felt like he'd be an appropriate individual as an employer to be asking us as government and other public agencies to, how are we going to provide him with employees that have the talents and skills that he's looking for, type of a thing. So with that said, I'd ask Lance, who this is his first day on the job, if you'll please tell us a little bit about yourself, Lance, where you're from, and just a little about yourself.
Okay, great. I appreciate that. I grew up in a little tiny town called LaSalle, Utah, just south of Moab, and spent my whole life and my whole career in rural Utah, and that's what I love. I have a passion for the rural areas of Utah, and I've spent time in administration in San Juan School District as well as Uinta School District, and look forward to working with the great people of Carbon County, and I'm excited to be here. Today is the first day actually on the job, so good luck getting anything very productive out of me today.
Nothing like being put on the spot, right?
That's right.
Very good. Well, Mayor Piccolo, if we could start with other introductions, if you'd introduce yourself, and then we'll go down the line.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner Miller. First of all, welcome to our community, Commissioner Superintendent Hatch. We look forward to getting to know you better. I'm the current mayor of Price City, born and raised in Carbon and Emery County. I have 3 children, 3 grandchildren, and a wonderful wife that's also from this area. I serve as a capacity of an advisory committee member for the Intergenerational Poverty Commission, which gives me an extra interest in these types of activities, and I'm grateful for you to allow me to be here today, Commissioners.
Thank you, Joe.
I'm Roberta Hardy. I'm the Chief Administrative Officer at Pinnacle Canyon Academy, and we are in our 19th year as a charter school, and we serve students in Emery and Carbon County.
Well, I guess I'm Commissioner Jake Miller, recently elected 2.5 years ago, and just trying to make a difference where I can. I won by 21 votes, which means that half the people didn't like me. But that's okay. We're here doing what we need to do in our stewardship, and I'm thankful to be a commissioner, and I'm glad that we can be here on this panel discussion, talking about jobs, talking about pathways into employment, and how we can streamline those pathways so that more people can be employed in rural Utah.
My name is Joe Peterson. I'm the Chancellor of Utah State University Eastern, with campuses in Price and in Blanding. I have deep love and background in rural Utah. I just told Lance that, like him, I have lived in LaSalle, Utah for a period of more than, I was from my birth until I was about 2.5.
Not very many people can say they lived in LaSalle, Utah. So.
Yeah.
And because of the fact that my dad lived in LaSalle, I was born in Monticello, so I have familiarity with San Juan County. I first started working for Utah State in 1980 in Roosevelt, so I've got some background in the Uinta Basin as well. But my love right now is Castle Country in southeast Utah. And it motivates me, gets me out of bed, and keeps me driving forward.
And welcome to our panel, and certainly to our new superintendent. I'm Gary Straquadine, and as Jake introduces me, I'm not real sure what I do. I picked up a phone call driving in, and I shouldn't have. But I'm here to say that I'm both a vice chancellor, a vice provost. I'm a professor of agriculture systems technology, if that means anything to anyone, and I'm a long-term Utah State University employee. My current position with academic programs, but my background is vocational education, or CTE, coming from both the industry model, the business model, the education model, and what I can do in this community, I believe, is to help us move the needle forward in developing educational and industrial pathways for employment of for a secure workforce and an informed workforce. So I'm all about workforce development and vocational education.
Mark?
Mark Holyoke, CEO at Castle Hospital. I've been here for 7 years, and I am just excited today to be able to be somewhat involved in this discussion, even if it is just on the moderator end, because this is a huge need in our community. And we've got all the individuals that can impact that right here on our panel discussion. So just excited. And as a, looking at the job force, we can be a recipient of that, the hospital as well as many industries here in the area. So thank you.
Very good. In the legislative session 2 years ago or so, they put underneath the wing of Department of Workforce Services several other agencies, Voc Rehab, Adult Education, and a few others. When they did that, they expanded the size of the general board, and for the first time ever, somebody from Carbon County was asked to represent, and that was me, surprising enough. So I've been on their board, on the general board, since February of this year, and soon thereafter was able to replace the incumbent chair of that board, and now I'm steering the helm, which, watch out, right? So some exciting things are happening, and I've got a little presentation to let everyone here know a little bit about what has been done thus far. And I do that because I want input from everyone here on the board on this panel as to where we should take it going forward. And this is a state endeavor. But the reason why I accepted this position is I want to bring back to Carbon County something that can be of benefit to us here locally. And we do have some good news to talk about later on with Gary on some projects that we've been working on with the high school and with Pinnacle and with our local employers. But before I jump into that, let me go ahead and switch over to this presentation and talk about career pathways just a little bit. Now, first of all, this subcommittee of the State Department of Workforce Services Development Board, this subcommittee of career pathways, had to, under the WIOA plan, which was the Workforce Initiative Opportunity Act, had to define what a career pathway was. And I say that because high school students or high school faculty, university faculty, employers, whenever they speak of career pathways, it kind of means something different to everybody who's talking about it. So there's some confusion there. And we've kind of, on the Department of Workforce Services side, established a universal definition of basically streamlining the hoops that somebody has to jump through to get them into employment. And a lot of that has to do with the new, and it's not necessarily new, but a greater emphasis placed on stackable credentials, to where through the process of being educated, they can then have employment opportunities, and it doesn't require that they have a 4 or a 6 year degree before they can have their first job. That while working and studying and going to school, they can be employed and advance in employment as they receive more education and training. But anyway, jumping right into this, the first few slides just talk a little bit about a new process that we're going through to understand the board members that we have on the committee. But you can see that we've got some big players at the state and some folks from industry. This Nick Viguli, he's actually put on the largest, I think it was called Core West, a data science conference in the state of Utah. So we've got Dean Lundberg, Joel Smith, Melissa Stark, Kimberly Bartell, Eric Rouge, Kimberly Carlisle with GoEd and Talent Ready Utah, Jared Haynes with CTE and UCAT, Amberly Johnson. Anyway, so why are we trying to help pathways within communities into employment rather than just the traditional route? And there's nothing wrong with the traditional route, but a lot of times people, it takes them a long time to figure out what they want to be when they grow up. They may change their degree several times. And, but what about those people who know what they want to be? And so that's what these career pathways are for those individuals who know what they want to be and can perhaps get on a streamlined pathway into work. Or for those people who have other obstacles into employment besides just knowing what they want to be. There are those individuals who are disabled. There are those individuals who have spent a little too much time in detention and maybe have some criminal record while still in high school. They have some impediments and some obstacles to get employed by anybody. Rural Utah, we've got employment obstacles. And then there's the underprivileged, those people who live in intergenerational poverty. And there's several other obstacles as well. So that's why the career pathways help us overcome those obstacles and get into, through these programs, employment sooner and the training and education necessary quicker. We understand that in the real world, sometimes what we taught is not necessarily what we need for the job. There's a little bit of a gap, and so part of the focus of the Career Pathways Committee is to bridge that gap, help people get the training and education that they need to be successfully employed. And we'll talk about the aerospace pathway and some of the other pathways that have been successful at accomplishing that. Definitional requirements of the WIOA pathway. Basically, you're aligning the skills and needs of industry at the state and regional level. And again, the emphasis that we're putting on this now is more, in the past, sometimes we've gone to employers and we've asked them to sign a form saying that they participated, you know, that they had involvement or input into a pathway or a plan. And we want a lot more from the employers nowadays, because we don't want people graduating and have the employers not interested in the graduates. And so, Mark, for you and all the other employers here locally, we want their input into the curriculum. And if we're teaching an electrical class and all the employers are wanting high voltage, which may not be a requirement but could be an option, we want to be able to have the flexibility within education to implement the high voltage, so to speak. Or specific nursing requirements that maybe here in our region you see more common, we could implement those. You know, that's kind of where this is headed, is that we want not only to inform and educate employers, but we want the employers to inform and educate the educational process and to be a part of it. And anyway, I'm just going to run through this really fast because a lot of this stuff won't be pertinent to today's conversation, but you can see that we've gone through over the past year or so, since before I was on this committee, several different items as far as formalizing a process by which pathways are created and developed. We've put together a template that in the future we'll be able to provide communities that are interested in putting together a new career pathway. And Gary, just as we did, it'll be first with finding out who those subject matter experts are and getting employers in the room to discuss. In a minute, if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit more about what we did there. And anyway, so we're not trying to set up a regimented schedule of what must be, as you can see by Jack Sparrow on the screen. The rules are more like guidelines anyway. We don't want to be so rigid and inflexible. The point of having a career pathway is to provide greater flexibility so that more people can get employed and get the training and skills that they need. We've got a variety of different scenarios. I've got this graph that took us a long time to put together, so to speak. A lot of the applied technology colleges actually have similar visual aids like this of how you can see each column there could be different employment opportunities. But visually, we're looking at it as the overall accomplishment being education. So CAD courses in adult education, post-secondary certificate, associate's degree, and bachelor's degree. And we had some input from some employers who asked us if we'd change this. You can see how some of the supports of how they could get that education and get into that job came from career counseling, Utah Futures, some grants, abilities to benefit, and tutoring, food stamps, child care, internships, workshops, on-the-job training, internships, financial aid, DWS placement, employer counseling. You can see the different supports that go into each level that can get them into employment, but some of the employers had an issue with this representation of the model. And so we adapted it to their wishes in this model, which pretty much shows the same thing, but rather than highlighting the educational goals and the degrees, they requested that we highlight the employment opportunities, because that should be the end goal. We want them not only to get their degree or their certificate that is required, but at the end of the day, after they've graduated, we want them to be employed. And so just visually, this was kind of the light bulb turning on for all of us that that was kind of a true point, and we needed to have a different type of representation where we can see here, first of all, we have the skilled assembler. So for a manufacturing company, a skilled assembler. Next, with a little bit more education, a little bit more training, and a variety of support mechanisms to help them overcome obstacles, whether they need voc rehab, whether they need tuition assistance or an apprenticeship program, but they could then become a welder. So they can enter in as a skilled assembler after their first certificate. And then as they're working as a assembler, they can get some more education and training, become a welder, and eventually a welding inspector. And then they can go on with additional training to become an aerospace tech drafter. And with you know, if they need support to overcome some obstacles there, there's the different programs that would allow them to do that. And then they can eventually, you know, go on to be an aerospace engineer. And the graph doesn't stop there, it's just that's where the page ends. But they can advance farther beyond that as well to other employment opportunities. And that's kind of been the change in focus for the state that we are disseminating amongst all the other communities, that the employer involvement is not only paramount, but we need to make sure that not only we have coordination and their input into what the programs look like, but also some type of skin in the game. And that has come in large part by a lot of the participating employers guaranteeing an interview for all of these graduates. And that has become extremely successful. Having multiple employers being involved and having these graduates have options amongst various employers, and having the employers participate through the training and educational process to where they know a lot of these candidates for 2, 3, 4 years before they become full-time employees. And that's beneficial to the employers, that's beneficial to the graduates, that's beneficial to the institutions that are providing the training and the education. That's pretty much the highlight. The rest of this is just kind of a little bit of fluff. Gary, could you tell them a little bit about the nursing program and tell them a little bit about the technology certificate and the new hire that we have, that USU Eastern has?
Yeah, let me start with health sciences, as we call it, or health professions. That
and Mark, feel free to interrupt, because we're now to that point.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, you know what we're doing. We have a broad umbrella, starting with the CNA, certified nursing assistants, medical assistants, the professional LPN, and then the registered nurse in our health professions. But then on the side, of course, we have the EMT training that we're still doing in first responder, and that's a community-based program. We'd like to say we have a health portfolio that will expand this year with phlebotomy and lab medical assisting, and we look forward with our health profession area and working with, it's the Pinnacle High School down at the other end of the counter here with Roberta, and what her program will be doing with her Talent Ready Utah grant, and she'll speak to that, I hope, Jake, in a moment or two, about the university's cooperation with them and in getting their high school students and carbon students involved in some health professions at the high school level. And that's what this pathway is all about, is the earlier the better, and the more earlier the better, meaning more and more early, both. And so in health professions, and I'll leave time here for Roberta to respond, in expanding our programs and our partners in the community with what we would call, starting with job shadowing, moving on to internships, apprenticeships. That's the model that we like to use and say logically, and that requires cooperation in the community with our health care providers, whether that is the hospital or the Instacare or the doctor's offices or the physical therapists or the nursing homes or the assisted living centers. So that's why we have reached our tentacles in all kinds of directions, and at times I'm here worrying about this health specific industry where it really has a spin-off into another. So that's where I'll start with health. But expanding just a little bit, we're excited about what we have with an opportunity, again, through a Talent Ready Utah funding that we've received, to really dive deep into career pathways with our industrial technology and manufacturing systems, which is, if you want to call it industrial arts on steroids, that's fine. We like to use the word industrial automation and what we're doing with automated systems and engineering. A lot of it's electrical engineering based, electronics based, and how we're looking at that. And we're calling it a pathway from the middle schools in this community, not junior high, middle school. We realize that, Superintendent. I called it the wrong thing for the first year, but our middle schools through our graduate programs in industrial science, as we would call that. And those opportunities, and as Jake has been great in connecting me and supporting me with our industry partners in looking at how do we design that curriculum pathway, where are our partners in this community, which is Carbon County and Emery County, and how we want to reach out to our students and their future employees, in a sense, and to grow them here at home and to keep them here at home. I know it's probably the joke in the community. I think I heard this from the mayor. Our greatest export in Carbon County is our youth, because they get all educated here and excited, and they move to the Wasatch Front and never come back. Through good employment opportunities, because we've developed our employment relationships and through our training programs, we don't want to export those bright minds any longer. We want to keep them here in the community. And I think that's a good statement that I learned from my friend Joe Piccolo down there at the other end as well. So those are the things that I'm shaping, at least, Jake, if I'm getting at your question or concerns.
And Vice Chancellor, I think it's so important for the community, as this is being broadcast to the community, to know the experience that you've had in rural communities, the experience of looking at things outside of the box. And that's one of the things that we're going to talk a little bit about today is, you know, the Talent Ready grant and how that's really thinking outside the box. As an employer, we've been fortunate with the relationship with the college that the college really looks at what is the local need. And so thank you. You've really lined that out, and that it's not, you know, those career pathways, something that's step by step, adding on, not starting over. So thank you. It sounds like some great things the USU Eastern has in place there, and the partnerships with the schools. And so that really opens up discussion there. Principal Hardy, if you could really share with us what this Talent Ready program is, and you're really the gusto behind it all, and so share with us what that is and how we can cooperate as a team to make that happen.
Okay, so we are a recipient of a $2,000 or $200,000 Talent Ready grant, and it comes from a long history with myself and the medical field. I'm married to a doctor, that was part of it. But when I first started this school, we wanted to do a medical-based school where all of our kids would graduate and they would be on their way to be physicians or nurses or anything in the medical field. Well, at that time, that really wasn't something that they would approve, or we didn't have the background ready to do it. So when this Talent Ready grant came available, we sat down with the college and with the hospital, because that's our largest employer in Carbon County. And if you read the research, the medical field is where all the jobs will be in the future. Jobs that we don't even know are going to be jobs in the future. The stuff that we can't even imagine with technology and with engineering and all the other things that we've been talking about, those fields are going to meld and change, and we need to be ready for it. And we wrote it based on a lot of our intergenerational poverty kids that we serve. We have 70% free and reduced lunch, and those students cannot traditionally afford to do some of the things that other students can. So this gives them the opportunity to go to college. We'll pay for all of it for at least 1 year, hopefully 2. We currently do that anyway, but this expands it even further. We have spots for 20 to 40 students, and we will be sending them at night, during the day, whatever we work out with the college. I just left a meeting with the college where we're setting up the actual schedule. And we will also be putting them in internships at the hospital and other areas. I think it's going to be an awesome program. What I'm most excited about is it gives us an avenue to start helping our students to expand in their own thinking, that they can be more than what they currently see themselves doing. I think a lot of times we limit ourselves as human beings, and this will give students an opportunity to see there's a million jobs out there. And again, I think we have to really look at this, that the jobs in the future, all of us on this panel, we don't know what they're going to be, because every day they change. And I see that in medicine all the time, just even based on having someone in the hospital and watching all of the technology that you use to make their lives better. And so we need to be prepared, and this is our first step to being prepared. We'll be sending out recruitment and having an open house and a bunch of other stuff, but we're really excited, and we have our students that are very excited about doing it, and it's exciting to see the partnerships that are happening. I hope that at the end we've developed some great opportunities with the college. We put funding in for the college, so they actually have money to hire people and to make this happen on their end. And I just think it's a great opportunity for Carbon and Emory kids.
So if I understand correctly, this is high school age students that are actually starting to take career-driven courses. They're not having to wait till they get their high school diploma and then they decide, what do I want to go into in college? I understand that you also approached the college with this idea. How was the reception there?
They were wonderful, and they have been every step of the way. And we're looking at the stackable credentials. So we're starting with phlebotomy, CNA programs, all that. Obviously, if you are on the pathway where you want to go into medicine and actually be a doctor, you're going to be taking biology and some of those other things. All of that, the traditional stuff already exists at the college. This is adding some new things, and this really, Joe Peterson is the one that led it, because when we looked at his vision and his plan, it fit perfectly with what we wanted to do, and it also, I think, really met the needs of the hospital. And again, I live with someone who I listen to what he talks about at night, and some of the frustration about not having people ready for those jobs. And when we look at it, we think, oh, a phlebotomist isn't, that's not that big of a deal, but it is. You need to be highly skilled. This will spit out a group of kids that can actually go to the hospital and start working. Because you know that lag time we have of actually training them, the hospital's taking that on. The part that I like is that's the stackable credentials. So you can start with that. It's just like what Jake showed us on the video. You can start with that, and then you get that certificate, and you just keep adding. And then you can get a better job with each time you add more. And really, the college has been absolutely terrific. Absolutely.
And this has also been something that these students, they graduate, they'll be making not just a minimum wage, they'll be making a living wage. And I think that really falls right in line with the governor's plan, with the $25,000 jobs. And here in rural Utah, we really have the edge there to be able to create something that's thinking outside the box and stackable credentials. Mayor Piccolo, you and I have had many discussions. You know, I mean, we've been a coal community for years and years, and we hope that that coal will come back, that we'll see some more activity there than we have in the last little while, but we're having to look at how we can create jobs in other fields and how we can keep some of these coal miners and some of those that have been involved in the coal industry, get them employed. How do you feel about this representing Price City and how we see these entities working together?
You know, and as you've made mention, I believe that Price City and Carbon County, Emery County, sister counties, have the greatest product that we have is the resilient people that live here. Working with a manufacturing industry that wants to locate to our area, the biggest selling point we can give them is they look at the area and say, we're semi-depressed, all of the talents moved away. Well, let me tell you, every one of them would come home if they had an opportunity to be here. And so we have a rich talent resource pool that's not just located here, but we've exported them temporarily to other locations to live for a while. The most recent city councilman that we've appointed is one of those return citizens to our community. They were educated here. They moved away to provide an opportunity of employment to raise their family and can't wait to come back home. And so I think Price City can make sure that we host an opportunity to deploy those resources when it becomes necessary. We have a great housing stock that's reasonable. We have a low cost of living as anywhere in the state. We have the second best place in the community in the Utah for seniors to locate. Primarily, the hospital provides a big resource for that, as well as our low-cost walkable health opportunities in our community and our senior citizen center that lives out here. I think the best thing that Price City can be in charge of is a good ambassadorship and a resource to the local needs once they are made known. If we have a manufacturing company coming, help them get involved. Quick permitting. Price City's been known for a one-stop permitting process for the 16 years that I've been in charge of the administration. And when Codell Electric, I guess I can say that out loud, I hope, without getting in trouble, they started 2 buildings at the same exact time, one in Logan, one in Price. Our facility was finished 6 months sooner than the one in Logan. It was online, producing income 6 months sooner. So Price City can expedite the ability to shift gears and get into production. So, and I believe that this is exactly where we need to be. Coal's still going to be a part of our community, our coal badge. I believe in it. It will never be what it was in the 70s, but it will always be part of our community. The aerospace is a high carbon-based product. We have 3 billion tons of coal still sitting under Carbon in Emery County. We're not going to produce it at 35 million tons a year ever again. But it'll always be something we should keep our eyes and ears on to take advantage of the low cost for energy or the low cost for producing other carbon-based products. Jobs have moved away from bricks and mortar. They've gone, manufacturing's outsourced, and the internet has increases to put pressure on retail outlets. And so this is perfect. We need to move in front of the ball and skate to where the puck's going to be, however you want to say that. We can't wait for somebody else to do it for us. So I'm grateful to be part of it. Price City stands ready and waiting to do our part.
That's great, and that's a great word to the community and to the employers out there, how we can, through Price City and the one-stop permitting, really get things on the ground a whole lot quicker. We've talked a lot about really the partnerships of getting these students started at an earlier stage, and so Chancellor Peterson and also new Superintendent Hatch, really like to have you visit about what concurrent enrollment is. I think it's important for parents to know that it's available and how that can really help in this career pathway, that don't have to wait till high school diplomas in hand, that we can really start on some of these sooner. So Chancellor Peterson?
I should turn to the superintendent and say, do you want to handle that one or should I?
I'll follow you up.
All right.
Great, thank you.
Well, concurrent enrollment is a way for students who are enrolled in high school to get college credit, to take courses that are advanced, that are college in their outcomes and their learning, and to achieve college credit. One of the great components is that the students achieve this credit without paying regular college tuition. And it constitutes a very economical way to complete a portion of a college degree. Now, there are two basic categories of concurrent enrollment. One of them is standard academic general education courses. They include things like math, English, biology, the sciences, the arts. Another one, though, is this area of career and technical education. And concurrent enrollment is a perfect tool to work with a population in an area like Castle Country, like southeastern Utah, and to prepare the hearts and minds of teenagers. Now, all of the parents in the room who are my age and probably younger know that when you deal with the hearts and minds of teenagers, you're dealing with a very complicated thing. The question is, what do I want to be when I grow up? And what is it going to cost me in terms of my personal effort and in terms of my family's finances? And what are the outcomes? What are the opportunities that will present themselves to me? And concurrent enrollment is a vital tool for all of us sitting here together. The principal, the superintendent, the college, all of us, to have a significant impact on the hearts and minds of the young people who are here in our communities that we love so dearly, and to have a major impact on this skills gap that the commissioner referred to in his presentation, to get them considering these skills that constitute shortages in businesses like the hospital and other regional enterprises. And so concurrent enrollment, especially on this CTE side, is an important, very, very important tool. The college has put a lot of resources into it historically, and even more over the past 2 years since Dr. Strackledine has been here. His leadership has been essential. And maybe he's itching to say something, I can tell.
I'd like to say to the superintendent, in my 2 years, we've right-sized concurrent enrollment in the Carbon District, and the school board knows I use that term, I believe, with affection. That we really have placed the concurrent enrollment model into a pathway model more than just what courses were available and what could I sign up for randomly. You know, where do you want to be? Do you want to be in your health professions? Do you want to be in your business and entrepreneur professions? Do you want to be in your industrial science professions? Where do you fit in? And certainly some of that are general education courses of English and mathematics and sciences, but then it's the specialized areas that we offer through our Utah State University Eastern Campus's CTE programming, and that allows the Carbon kids especially to have an advantage that they don't have up in Cache Valley or out in Tooele or even in Wayne County. I mean, it's unique here of what we offer. But I like to say that if you look at our numbers, Superintendent, that we're right-sized in the numbers. We're not adding 10 and 15% concurrent every year. In fact, I think we dropped maybe 6 students last year total, of the total number. It's a very minimal amount, but it's the right size model. And with the support of the principals and the guidance counselors, I think we've got a better program to offer. And how do we do that at the Carbon High School is we're in good shape. We have work to do, however, at the Lighthouse, which is the alternative school, and at Pinnacle. We admit that we have not been as abundant and as fortunate in offering with both the Lighthouse and Pinnacle. We need to be working better with them, and that's why we've got the right people in place at our university, I believe, to work with those schools as well.
So really, thank you, and really turn it over to Superintendent and also Principal Hardy, how you feel that this is working for you and most importantly for the students involved, and if there's anything that we could do even better moving forward.
Well, just speaking from a personal standpoint, I came to CEU a long time ago and spent some time here and graduated with my associate. At the same time, I was taking classes with my brother-in-law, John Alden Whitehead, who had just graduated from high school, and he had taken several concurrent enrollment classes, and he and I graduated at the same time. He was on the fast track because he had all those classes, and it wasn't possible for me where I was from. So what a great opportunity. I also want to highlight the importance of getting your foot in the door or starting on a path. So many students, that's the hardest part. Speaking from a family where I am the first generation college graduate, that was the hardest step, was taking that first class, believing that you could take a college class, figuring out how do you register, how do you do tuition. A lot of families have no idea how to do any of that. So to come out of high school already having taken some classes, already having succeeded, I mean, that's starting down a very productive path, and I think it helps them a lot. One of the things that we talk about in education is a lot of you don't want to pigeonhole a student, so you don't want to force them necessarily to make a life decision that's going to hang over them forever because they've chosen this one path. But one of the things that we always want to remember is that education is about learning how to learn. And I feel very strongly about that. It's part of our Carbon School District mission. Not everything we learn is going to be applicable. So what if you start down the medical path and you decide it's not for you? It's still valuable because you learned how to learn, and that's the most important thing, because as was mentioned by Roberta, some of the research by Daniel Pink shows that our college graduates, our high school graduates, are going to change their jobs up to 7 times in their lifetime. So what we're doing is we're preparing them for that by teaching them how to learn something new, learn something different. And if they can learn how to do this, well, I can learn how to do that too. And that's a huge part of the value for what I see.
Thank you. And I'm a strong believer that education is really the key to our success in the future. Whether that's in a white collar or a blue collar industry, that education is key. So thank you. Principal Hardy.
We've had a rich history with the college since 2009. We've had a number of our students graduate with their associates before they even graduated from high school. It used to be a lot easier than it is right now. So when you ask the question, what would make it easier, it's not really the college that's the problem. We need to be lobbying the State Office of Education. Some of the stuff, like this new engineering thing that we've all been working on, it's the most wonderful opportunity for our kids, but they can't enter into the college until they've taken the 3 math classes at the high school, which means that you're only going to get seniors, and the math that is needed for the engineering degree is not the same math that we teach in high school. In fact, it's diametrically opposed, to be honest with you. So not that math isn't good, but it would be nice. I think this wonderful thing that we're doing here in this community, we have to also lobby the state, because we're still using an archaic model when it comes to concurrent enrollment. And I personally don't feel like there's enough respect for the CTE programs within the concurrent enrollment system. And I know for me personally, the best thing that we've done at our school is we teach our students, you know, this whole learning thing that Superintendent Hatch touched on is so important. And we teach them that when they step foot on the college campus, they're a college student. And that comes before anything. Games, prom, whatever. If you've got an assignment at your college class, you get it done. You do not say, well, I'm going to go to the assembly. And I really think the best thing the college has done has made it so that we're a guest on their campus, and I teach my students that all the time. But I want my students there, because if everything was held at our high school, the students don't get the same feeling of I'm growing up. I now can understand how to traverse the system. I know how to go to the library. One of the things we make our students take is college success. That's one of the first classes we make them take, because they show them everything on the campus. But I think the most important piece is that they have to be a college student when they get there. They're not a high schooler. They have to get that through their head, and we've really pushed that at our school. So I like it. I don't necessarily want the college to bend to my bell schedule. In fact, I would prefer they don't, because I think that's an artificial thing. When you're still going and visiting and your high school life takes precedent over what you're doing at college, that's not really a real experience. We've had a tremendous opportunity with them over the last few years to put our kids through a lot of their CTE programs. One of the things we do is they have an excellent teacher that teaches the Ice House method, which is a way of entering the job force, and we require all of our seniors to take it. Now, do they all attend? Not always, but we require them. And we think it's very important, because the CTE portion of what they're doing on this particular campus has really been tailored to meet the needs of the students that we have in Carbon and Emery County. And I can't say thank you enough, because the types of students that I get, I think some of what they need, that program over there has just met all of their needs. And honestly, we're always going to need truck drivers. We're always going to need cosmetologists. We're going to need all of those people. And to just go one traditional way of looking at education really limits all of those jobs that we need in our community. If somebody doesn't pick up our trash, that becomes a crisis. And I kind of look at that same thing when we put them in the CTE classes. There's a lot of classes that we send our students to at the college that we pay full price for. I don't feel bad about it at all. I really wish they were concurrent enrollment classes, but I feel like our students deserve to still go in all of those other classes, even though they couldn't traditionally afford it. So honestly, I think the way everyone could help is we need to lobby the state office more. And that's probably something all of this committee could do together, because I think we're still using a model that's a little bit outdated.
Mark, can I speak to that real fast?
Absolutely. In fact, I think we need to take advantage of you and your position there, Commissioner.
Actually, Roberta unknowingly touched on a topic that I was going to ask assistance with. So since you've already volunteered your help, I appreciate that greatly. My board, my committee, and the state board doesn't necessarily have authority over the Board of Education, but we can have an influence, and we can write a letter of recommendation. And we have notified, my committee has, in our past presentation in July, we notified the board that we would be coming to them with several recommendations for education, primarily because of some of the obstacles mentioned. Previously in the school district, Gary Strackwedine and I have noticed that some changes could be made as far down as the 7th and 8th grade, simply to help people in high school have the math, be advanced far enough in the math area that they could be taking some of these classes as a senior. We still run into the impediment that Roberta brought up of these advanced math classes or other classes for other programs do not take the place of any high school required course. So their concurrent enrollment, you can take them while in high school, but they only count as an elective. So it might be an advanced engineering class that has a lot to do with math, but it doesn't fit the math requirement. And so it's really hard for them to be taking these classes as early on as we'd like them to as a sophomore or junior. I mean, it's impossible because they would have to be taking summer classes or something that we don't have the faculty to provide in order to be taking it that early on. However, which the current school board, I'm trying to remember her name, is it Tracy Warner?
Terrell Warner.
Terrell Warner
From the state.
from the state. She's newly appointed to her position. She's the chair. And conversations recently, she's actually looking for things to become a little bit more flexible. There's a big dynamic in making things more flexible and a lot of things to be considered. But we definitely like to throw our support behind some of her ideas, which I would like for us to maybe review the topic more thoroughly and put together a letter with the school district, with Pinnacle, with the university, and see if we couldn't send that to Terrell Warner and let her know our view on the matter, simply so that perhaps in the future some of these pathways could began sooner, and that some of these college credit that they're earning in high school would be able to count towards their high school credit. I actually have a personal experience on this. I was one of those students who took a lot of college credit while in high school, and I almost did not graduate high school because I was missing a world history class. You know, it was just kind of a funny thing how it worked out with scheduling and everything else, which, you know, hats off to all those curriculum coordinators that make sure that we all graduate. One other impediment, if I might mention, there's another subcommittee called the Apprenticeships Committee. Now, apprenticeships, career pathways, we're very connected, very related in some of the efforts that we have. However, the chair for this Apprenticeships Committee, his name is Joey Gilbert. He works for the Association of Builders, I believe. And he attended a conference of over 1,200 curriculum coordinators, the people that put together your courses in high school, and found out that during this conference, a lot of our high school counselors are actually improperly motivated as far as incentivized on how they're providing counsel to our kids. They are provided strictly towards degree-oriented advice, meaning any advice towards trade, any advice towards certain several pathways. They were actually ulteriorly motivated not to show them that information or bring that up because of the way that their structure is. And I don't understand all those details, other than he was sharing that during the state meeting and said that they've made changes. So things are on the mend, so to speak, if that makes sense. So we could look for more flexibility, more good things to come in that area, as far as our counselors, high school counselors' hands not being tied like they have been in the past, and perhaps being more involved and participating in these pathways, and apprenticeships, and internships, and job shadowing, and everything else that makes it important. So, you know, Roberta, I applaud you for bringing that up all on your own, and I hope that we can all collaboratively put together some type of letter or format. I don't know if you'd like to do a template of that, or,
Sure, I'd be willing to.
you know, and we can do it on Google Docs, and all of us can share and add to it. Would that work?
Yeah, I think the biggest issue is the math. A lot of the other stuff works. English, biology, those all, they count at your high school. But when you're taking math, because we went to Common Core, 1, 2, and 3 don't translate to anything that you're doing at the college.
Mm-hmm.
Not at all. And so that engineering thing that we've all been working on, which I'm literally so excited about, my kids won't be able to enter into that until they finish those 3 math classes. And even when they finish, they don't match anything that they're going to need in the industry. So I think if we started with math, and I know when Superintendent Steve was here, we talked about this a lot, and he had the same concerns. You know, I don't want to pick on you your first day, but I mean, and if you talk to Robin Hussey, it's a really big deal. because that means that those kids cannot, there's no way to do it because they have to take those classes in their everyday schedule. And so we've got to figure out a way to do that, whether we allow them to do it at night or, you know, whatever. There's got to be some more flexibility there.
And if we can put together that letter from this committee,
Yeah.
we can then supplement it with the state board. I can go to the state board and say, hey, my community's done this. I'd like you to review it and see if we can't do something similar.
Okay.
We can submit both together, and
Yeah, I think
and
let's
it
start
can
with
be
that.
an influential approach to change. To change that people are already thinking about and considering, we want to throw our support behind them. And I'd just like to say that on the Career Pathways Committee at the state level, we have Blair Caruth and we have Jared Haynes with the CTE programs and with Yushi and some of the other roles that they work in. And they're very supportive of this idea as well. They see the impediment of people not being as advanced as they could be when they enter into the university level training.
I'd love to see the partnership and what we can do here in the community moving forward. It's exciting. I know we're out of time, but there's really one question that I'd really like to throw out there, and that's coming from me as a resident of Carbon County, as a parent of teenagers. I've got a house full of teenagers right now. What can we do as residents of Carbon County to be able to help support you in the organizational goals that you have? And so that's really a question to the educators. So if we could take just a minute or two, just what can we do as residents of the county to help support you in your goals? Chancellor?
Encourage the young people that you know and influence to invest in human capital. Human capital are skills, credentials, abilities that you can market for a family-sustaining wage. And I think there's a reluctance on the part of young people to form and commit to goals that are related to investing in human capital. I'm gonna make this thing out of myself that is highly valuable and that will sustain me as I move forward into other goals I have in life. And it's just a matter of parenting. It's a matter of mentoring. It's something that is really generational. It has to do with parents, but more than anything, it has to do with old people. Old people have to mentor and to guide young people and help them form and commit to appropriate educational goals.
Thank you, Chancellor. Anyone else want to add to that?
Just quickly, Mark, I think that it's important right now that we share the success stories to help create collaborative intelligence, because that's contagious. That'll produce unprecedented partnerships to create solutions for the barriers and gaps that we have. And so I'd encourage the citizens of our community to share their success stories. They're going on right there around us all the time. And that'll help lift the reservoir's level, bringing all the boats up, not just one at a time. So,
and possibly even a formal release of that through some testimonials of some success stories here locally. That's great. Great. Anyone else? Yes, Superintendent.
I just wanted to mention that in our Career Pathways program in 2016, we had 27 graduates who received their career pathway. They did everything they were supposed to do to earn that, which means that they took the classes. They also had a work experience of some kind. 2017, that increased to 36 students. And some of those areas are agriculture, business and marketing, information technology, programming, television broadcasting. I know there's somebody from a television broadcasting here today, but all of these different areas, we need the partnership from people who are willing to take a high school student and give them a job shadowing experience. Give them an opportunity to get a feel for, is this something I might want to pursue? And then our career pathways and our concurrent enrollment can take over from there, because they'll get a passion for what they like, and off they go. But that's something that the community could really help us with, is even approaching us. We don't know everybody, but if they could approach us and say, hey, I'd like to help out. I'd like to have a high school kid come and experience this area.
So a word to the employers out there. You've got Castview Hospital, we're well on board, and we'll provide whatever we possibly can. And so other employers out there, please come to the school district, come to the college, come to Pinnacle, and let them know how you would like to be involved in that. That's awesome. It takes partnership of not just the educators, but the community as a whole.
For me, talking to parents specifically, I think we need to change some of our verbiage. We need to support education. And what I mean by that specifically is have your students go to school. They need to be in school because they miss a lot of school. And I know the district struggles with the same thing I do. A lot of stuff takes precedent over going to school, and they need to be in school. I think the other thing as a community, we really should be doing a lot more with our youth to prevent drug abuse. It's an epidemic in this community. I'm not putting my head in the sand anymore. We have 5 therapists that work at our school. We do all kinds of drug treatment. Any family that approaches us, we treat them because that's killing our youth. And what I mean by that is they themselves may not be into it, but I have students in my school who have 2 jobs because they're paying the bills in their families because their parents are strung out. And so I think as a community, when we're looking at what we need to do, we need to be strengthening parents, their role as a parent, whatever that takes. If it, obviously finding jobs is important, but we need them to know how valuable they are to us. And for me as a principal, I can't do my job without parents. I need them to be on board. I think we need to support our teachers. They work really hard, they do a really good job, and I think to stay home and talk about your teacher negatively doesn't really help your student to get any better. So I'm taking a really basic approach when you ask that question, but for me, I'm a little concerned about next year because we've had some legislative changes and we don't have the support from the court system that we've had in the past. It's all on schools. And so when I say this, I mean this with a little bit of fear in my voice because we aren't going to have any backup. It's just going to be get to school, and when they say I'm not coming, I'm not really sure what we're all going to do. So I would plead with parents that you yourself say to your student, education is what will change us and get us out of intergenerational poverty. That's the ticket. Let's all stand behind that student and help them to go one level up, just one more. But it won't happen if they're not in school. So my very basic advice, please send your students to school and have them there every day.
It's now more than any other time, it takes a community to raise a child.
Yep,
and so our partnership is really going to make that happen. Thank you so much for your time, for your expertise, for everything you do in the community. And really turn it over to you, Commissioner Mueller, if you had any closing comments.
Just to touch on some of the topics that Mayor Piccolo and Roberta made, I'm actually going to be sharing a bunch of success stories for intergenerational poverty kids with the Lieutenant Governor in Cedar City at the Rural Summit on another panel discussion. And we need to get some of those success stories out so that people know they can get out of this cycle of poverty, so that they can get employed and so they can have real jobs. We've got a lot of exciting things here coming to our community. The J.C. Penney building will soon be occupied by several businesses. Several businesses are teaming up together to occupy that, and there will be a lot of future internships, apprenticeships, job shadowing. There will be a lot of employment opportunities there, and that'll help our community in some of the areas that maybe we struggle with, such as the soft skills, customer service, and things of that nature. And so we are bringing to town some items that are very exciting, and we're looking forward to that. And just want to let everyone remember that we have upcoming here, we have the county fair coming up with a lot of really fun things. So get the family, bring them out, have some fun, and let's share some of these success stories.
Thank you.